we were asked to write something inspirational, and I thought to myself at the beginning, what is inspiration? Where does it come from? And I guess it doesn't really matter. Inspiration can be a feeling, a thought, something you see, something you hear, something you touch. It can be good, but it can be bad too. But if you take the bad and throw it into another realm almost, you can make something beautiful out of it, and you can learn and grow into somebody beautiful, and it doesn't make you, it defines you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I've always been a dreamer. I've always had big dreams. My parents, they weren't like that. My grandparents were not like that at all. They, go to work and put the money in the bank, pay the rent. They didn't own homes. I don't actually remember living in a bought-in home until I bought my first when I was 25. So my dad was a job hopper and things like that. So we moved around a lot, and I kind of carried that gypsy mentality with me my whole life until I'd say about a year ago. And a little bit of me, as I said, as a kid, I moved around a lot. My dad was a job hopper. We went to about 14 different schools between me and my brother and my sister. And if I had to count, and actually when I was writing this, I sat and I thought about it for about 15 minutes. And I counted almost 100 houses that I've lived in my lifetime. Which, when I was younger, I think it bothered me, but now I think I just got to see parts of the world that maybe nobody else did, right? So take a negative, make it a positive. I even went to the same school twice at one point. I went to the school called R.H. Cornish in Port Perry, and I went there in grades 1 and 2, and then I left. We moved somewhere else. We lived in about a billion other places in between, and then I came back in grade 8, and what really blew my mind was the fact that when I walked into that classroom, all the kids from grade 2 were still there. And they were like, what do you mean you went here? Like, where'd you go? And, they had all lived in that same town their whole lives and had that stability that I really, really wanted. And, my parents, as I mentioned, they were young, and when they had they didn't have stability at all. They didn't know anything. My grandparents, there was 3 kids. My grandparents actually took me. I was the lucky chosen one. Thank God for that. My grandpa was a musician, so that got bred into me really quick. And I thank God every day for those moments with my grandparents, because my grandparents were entrepreneurs. My grandfather owned trucks with Esso. I believe he owned 4 of them. And to this day, my grandfather died 5 years ago. We're still trying to sort out the will because he owns shares in Texaco. And I don't know for some of you if you even know what Texaco is, but that was like when I was born, it changed over to Esso. So we're still trying to sort that out. But my grandparents were entrepreneurs. And my grandpa always said, Carrie, you gotta reach for your dreams with both hands. Don't listen to anybody else, head forward, just do it. Do what you want, because that's what makes you happy. But my parents, they had dead-end jobs. My dad, as I mentioned, was a job hopper, job after job after job, which would explain house after house after house. And my sister and my brother were raised by them. So here's me over here I've been self-employed. I've maybe had 3-4 jobs in my lifetime. I've always had a business. It wasn't always necessarily this type of business, but I always had a business of my own. But my brother and my sister, they have had job after job after job that they hate, and they live that lifestyle still to this day. They think I'm crazy. They think this whole entrepreneur thing is just insanity, and I think it's them that's crazy. I think I got it. I think I finally got it figured out. I may not always do it right, and I may not always handle it the way I should, but I know what I gotta do and where I'm going. So that's all that matters to me. When I was little, as I mentioned, my grandparents raised me, and the reason being was because I was a hyper kid. I was what they called a Ritalin child. They had this wonderful drug called Ritalin in the 70s that came out, and for us hyper kids, instead of taking us to the park or for a walk or something, they gave us pills. Well, they didn't know a lot about that back then, and my grandmother, who was looking after me at the time, said, no. I'll take her out, I'll figure it out. She's not gonna be on drugs. So back in the 70s, they didn't know a lot about Ritalin, and they took me off cold turkey. And I ended up in a coma for 2 weeks, and they didn't think I was coming back. Well, if they had only known then how much of a fighter I would turn out to be. I was stubborn, and I came back, and my grandma said, no, we're gonna deal with this the right way. So you know what you do with a kid that's hyper and has a lot of energy? That's what parks are for. You take them out, you do stuff with them, you don't give them drugs. And that's what my parents' solution was. But thank God, as I mentioned, I had my grandparents to stand up and say, no, we got this. My grandparents handled me fine, and I was really, really blessed to have them, and I always wondered why my grandparents chose me to take home and not my brother or my sister, because my sister's 5 years older. So you'd think they'd take her because she's easier, right? No, my grandma just seen the potential there. And my grandfather, I was always singing as a little girl, so he really wanted to teach me music. So that led me to kind of where I am today. By the time I was 12 years old, my parents split up. They got back together, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, to a point where my older sister and I said, we don't want you together. It was just too much. It was hell. We were bouncing back and forth, going to moms and dads. You know, we just didn't want it. We loved them both, but we just didn't want them together. It was toxic. And then by the time I was 14, my dad was with a lady named Judy, and I remember the conversation like yesterday. I lived at home with my dad, and I was in my room, and my dad hooked up with this lady, and they were moving to Peterborough or something. And I remember sitting in my room and hearing a conversation, and Judy said to my dad, what are you gonna do with Carrie Lynn? There's no room for her. And that, I'm gonna be straight, that pissed me right off. I was like, how do you say that to my dad? I'm his. You don't do that to your kids. But you know what? I got that stubborn fighter gene about me, and I'm like, no. And I moved out on my own. And by the time I was 14, I worked every single day after school at Swish LA at Brock Road and Highway 2 in Pickering. I didn't even have a SIN number, actually. The owner, Anthony, his wife got my paychecks in her name. She would cash them and give me the money, because they knew I needed that job to survive. I needed that job to eat every single day, and that was the only way I was gonna stay in school. So I stayed in school too. I went to work every day. I had an apartment. By the time I was 15, I had this cool apartment in South Pickering, which was really, really awesome until Children's Aid found it. Somebody ratted me out. So Children's Aid shows up on the door one day, and I had a boyfriend at the time, and his uncle, Children's Aid said, no, you're gonna have to go live in a group home. And I wanted no part of that. That didn't sound like a good idea at all. So my boyfriend at the time, his uncle, stepped up and said, I'll be your legal guardian. You stay in school, you do well, I'll be your legal guardian, I'll keep you here. So I got to keep my cool apartment. And I was the coolest kid in school then. I loved it. But you know what, I had to struggle, and it wasn't like my friends hung out with me every day. I went to school, I went to work every single day. I had no fear. I never once ever went on the welfare system, not once. Ever. I swore that I could do this without it. I never needed that kind of help. I could work and figure it out. I kind of had it made for a kid my age. I came and went as I pleased. I did what I wanted, but that's probably why I ended up pregnant at 18. And that, you know, some people would see that as a bad thing, but I didn't. I mean, I seen that as a blessing, because life is life, right? Then along came Kyle. Best thing that ever happened to me in the world. He changed my life. He took me from this little partier that's touring around with bands and going all over Ontario and doing whatever I want, to a mom. And the best job I've ever had in the world was that. Kyle's dad and I. Like Kimmy said, we're kind of bare in our souls, so there's going to be some things that some of you don't know about me, and some of you really, really know me. But I'm going to be honest with everybody today. And Kyle's dad and I split up when Kyle was about 2. And they asked me if they could have Kyle for the weekend, him and his parents. So I said sure, because it was the right thing to do, right? Did you guys know that people under the age of 18, if you give a child to somebody else without a custody order in place, possession is 9/10 of the law? Crazy, right? So it works with people that way. I dropped my son off for a weekend to his grandparents and his father. I went to pick him up on the Sunday, and they said, nope, not chance, see you in court. So here I am at 18, 19 years old going, well, I have no clue what to do. And I didn't have my family to help me. I had me and only me, and that was okay, because I would just fight. I would not give up. And I am the stubbornest person in the world, I swear to God. So I just put it in my head, I'm not gonna give up. So for 4 years, actually, I lost 4 years with my son. And I really hated them for that, because it was time taken away. I didn't know what would happen later on. I had no clue. Had I have known, I'd be even madder then, I think. But, I just kept it in my head, don't give up, Carrie. Just keep moving forward. Go to school, go to work, don't get into trouble, be around good people. So I eliminated myself from my friends and stuff like that for that couple of years. I just stayed away from everybody because I was so afraid that they would affect the chances of me getting my son back. And I wasn't letting that happen. No way. So by the time Kyle was 6, he came back. His dad, actually, we were going to court. We went to court the one day, and 3 days later he called me and he said, come get him. He goes, I'm sorry, just come get him. So I hopped in my car, I drove down there, and I went, got him, and I packed up his room, man. I did it all by myself. I packed that whole room up, I got him in the car, and I said, come home, baby, we're going home. So I did, and one of the things one of my goals back then is this was all happening was to buy a house by the time I was 25 for Kyle. Because I was going through all this crap, I figured if I kept a stable job or a business and then bought a house, that would show the courts that I was responsible enough to take my son back. I didn't do anything wrong, by the way. I did nothing. I just didn't understand how the law worked. We got people.
You're not meant to do that, that's mine.
No?
Got it, you should turn the speaker up?
I don't know if
Go ahead, Carrie.
So by the time I was 25, that was my goal to buy a house. So on October 30th, 2000, I turned 25 and I moved into my first house that day in Caesarea. Yay, I did it. I finally did it. I got my son back, I got my house, I had a successful roofing business, averaged about 150 a year. Life was good. I was recording, I actually was touring back and forth between here and Nashville to record some of my music. Some of it was written by Rory Orbison. So I got to go to the Orbison group and meet all those guys and chill with them and learn from them. And they sat us around this round table and just gave these inspiring speeches that had nothing to do with music. So I'm thinking, I came all the way to Nashville for this, but you know what? I understood what they said afterwards. It was just about motivating us, kind of the same thing we do here, right? No different. So I thought I had it made. I had a nice home and everything, like I said. And I think it was 2004 or 3. A girl named Dawn Roberts, who used to follow my band around, she was like a roadie, I guess you could say. She'd come to all our shows and support us and stuff like that. I get a call. We were working at the P place. And I get a call that says, Carrie Lynn, come home, your front door's broken. And I'm like, my front door is broken. I own a Rottweiler, okay? Like, nobody's getting in that house. But as I was leaving, I left the office on Simcoe Street, and I get up Simcoe Street, and as I'm moving, I kind of have this feeling in my tummy like something's not right. Like, why would somebody just randomly come and tell me my door's broken? It just didn't seem right. The story didn't make sense. So I'm speeding up now, and I'm flying down Simcoe, and I'm like, I need to get home before somebody lets my dog out. And all of a sudden, I get a call on my cell phone. It says, Carrie Lynn, slow down. And I said, what are you talking about? Who is this? They said, it's Durham Regional Police. Please slow down or pull over. So I pull over. You got my curiosity, you win. So I pull over, and they ask me if I know Dawn Roberts, how long I've known her for, in what capacity I know her, do I know where she lives, do I know her family? And they're asking me all these questions, and finally I said, yo, tell me what's going on here. And they said, we've made arrangements to go pick up your son from school. Your boyfriend's been notified. We're going to take you to the house to get a few things, but your house has been broken into, and she's on the loose and wants you dead. Dead. She broke into my house, $47,000 damage. This is why you're supposed to have insurance. $47,000 damage. She had stabbed marks all over the house and left notes saying that she wanted me, my bass player, and her parents dead. She was killing us all. She was literally, she was chopping us up with Ginsu knives and burying us in northern Manitoba. She had a map. Like, that's how thought out she was. And she was an OPP dispatch. Like, that's crazy. So anyways, I go home, I look at my house, everything's done. We had to throw out everything. We didn't have clothes, nothing in the end. We had to throw it all out because everything was contaminated, blue crystals, and like just craziness. It doesn't even matter, the house was trashed, period. So I said to the police officer, I said, so what now? And he goes, well, you pack a bag and you come with me. We take you guys and we hold you until we find her. So I'm like, holy crap. like, I don't wanna do this, I have things to do, I just started at the P place. You know what I mean? I wanted to make an impact, I needed to make money. So, but I went, I didn't have a choice, you know what I mean? And a week later they got her. She actually literally drove back into town. And if any of you know Caesarea, there's 2 ways in and 2 ways out. That's it, that's all. It's a little island in the middle of Port Perry, kind of. So she came back, she came all the way back home, and they got her, and we were allowed to move back home, and we literally had to rebuild the house. We had to rebuild the floor. She cut the main water lines in the laundry room, and everything was just soaked. So we had to replace floors. The house was open concept. But we got a whole new house out of the deal, and thank God for insurance. I got new clothes, new boots, new carpet, new everything. So you know what, I was really, I mean, other than the fact that she wanted me dead, I was like, okay, cool, new stuff, right? I can live with this, this is easy. So, you know what, things like, at the time, you know, it wasn't as bad. I mean, I'm sure sitting in that hotel room, I was probably like, oh my God, this guy's gonna kill me, right? But then you just get through it. At this point, while this was going on, this is when I made top 50 as well on the Canadian country radio stations. And I was touring still and stuff. I had to put it on hold for a week or so, but you know, whatever. So I go back to work a week later, and you know, you hear Ray talk about people complaining about their uplines. My upline were Jill and Stuart, and they were British and from the Navy. And I'm trying to think of nice words to describe them right now, but they just weren't nice. Let's just leave it at that. And you know what, they did try at times, but actually it got to a point where we fought so much, I think I got in trouble, and my punishment was getting on Ray's team. Get in trouble again. So in the end, you know what I mean, it was what it was. But then, you know, I come back to work, I'm building it, everything's going great, and then on February 18th, 06, I'll never forget it, I'm sitting in a restaurant in Port Perry, and I get a phone call from a girl named Krista, and it says, Carrie, they're all gone. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Krista? I was just at your mom's earlier today. And she's like, the house burnt down and they're all gone. All 3 of them, her mom, her dad, and her 12-year-old brother, Kevin. I was like, oh, this is a big kick in the head. So I went there and I watched that little girl, she was 19 at the time, just crumble. And I would have done anything to make her better. And we did some stuff and we raised some money. I actually sat with her parents the night before, tried to write their life insurance, and they told me no, wait till Friday. So when Krista called, I had to tell her that we didn't write the business. So clear your conscience is what I'm gonna tell you on that. Always clear your conscience. When you're sitting with people and they say no to you, clear your conscience. Because I don't have a clear conscience with them completely. I took it, I'm just gonna tell it like it is. I was like, okay, Heather, see you tomorrow. Tomorrow was too late for them. And their 19-year-old daughter now has a 13-year-old brother that she has custody of, which, by the way, she just put through university. I'm so proud of. And we support them, and they're buried in a little place in Whitby there. But a year to the day almost later, my son died. You know, I thought in that year that I'd had enough. My house got trashed. My best friend died. And then on February 22nd, 07, my son had a brain aneurysm and he died on his snowboard doing what he loved. I used to think being there was the worst thing that happened to me. But now, I thank God for every second. It was the best thing that happened to me because I'm the one that got to be there to say goodbye. I'm the one that got the last squeeze. And you know, the day Kyle died, he came home that day. We were sitting in the living room playing video games, and he's like, Mom, I'm gonna make something to eat, and I'm gonna go across the street with Cole, this other little kid that was with him that day. And I'm like, okay, so I went upstairs and I laid down. I wanted to lay down for an hour. I had a gig that night. And I wanted to lay down for an hour, and I heard him say, Mom, I'm going. And I jumped up out of the bed. I don't know what made me do it to this day. I still don't know, and I'm so grateful. But I jumped up out of the bed. I'm like, Kyle, come back. And he did. And I ran downstairs, and I'm like, I just want to hug you bye. He's like, oh, Mom, I love you so much. And he gave me a hug, a kiss. And that was the last words that I got to hear. how lucky am I? I know you don't think I'm lucky, but how lucky was I to hear those words? Because most people don't get that opportunity. Most people don't get the chance to hug somebody like that. And I think it was God's way of waking me the hell up. So you go down and hug your kid, because you're not going to see him again after today. So he hugged and he left. And he went out the door, and about an hour later, I get a knock at the door from his little friend Cole, who was 10 at the time. Kyle was 13. He says, Kyle broke his leg. And I'm like, okay, well, this is nothing new. If anybody knew my kid, they would know that I'm stealing this. They would know that he was accident prone, big time. Stitches and broken stuff was like a common occurrence in our house. He was a boy, typical boy, you know? But I was getting my clothes on and stuff like that, and Cole came back. And he's like, you need to hurry, Carrie Lynn. So I'm like, okay. So I get out there and I put my boots on. It was a blizzard. Like, when I say blizzard, you could not see across the street. And I strapped my boots on, I threw my coat on, and I come walking across this big field across the street from the house. And I get to the edge and I'm yelling, Kyle, get up. Kyle, get up. And he didn't. And I knew. To be honest, I don't think I've ever said this before, but I think I knew in that very second. I think I knew my heart, my head, everything told me. And I ran. I actually kicked the boots off that I was wearing, and I ran because they were holding me down. There was about 3 feet of snow, so I just wanted to move quick, right? So I got down there. I'm a fireman's daughter. CPR, here we go. And I phoned 911, and they did it with me, and the firemen came, and the worst part about that, the firemen, the ambulance drivers, the police, they all knew Kyle. So you know what happens when an emergency attendant shows up to an incident that they know somebody? They need a whole new crew. Everybody has to change. They can work on the person until the other crew comes. And then when the other crew comes, they have to leave. They're not allowed to stay. There's too much of a connection, too much of an emotional connection, to a point where when we went to the hospital, every nurse that was on duty got sent home. Because they were like, oh, it's Kyle. He got stitches 3 weeks prior. But they all knew who it was, and the doctor said, go home. But every one of those policemen, ambulance drivers, and firemen all went home, changed their clothes, and came back. They came back to stand with me. Because they knew too. They really did. I mean, we worked on Kyle in the field for about a half an hour. It was pretty clear. But they all came back and they stood beside us, and they didn't leave me, my side. And, you know, they came out and told me Kyle was gone, and there had to have been 100 people that I love very much standing in that room. Some of them are in this room. And they all stood beside me and said, it's gonna be okay, we got you. I remember, Ray, you said you can't fall off the floor. What you didn't tell me was there was sometimes a basement. So that happened, we get through it. 2 funerals for my son later. I don't even know how many viewings, and 1,000 people at least. But 400 people from my company showed up in red shirts to stand beside me too, and never was I so proud. And it took one message from Mr. Young over there, Michelle, because Michelle helped me out a lot too, to tell people what my request was, because Kyle's favorite color was red. But 800 people in total showed up to the church that day. And I said, I don't know if I asked you, Ray, or asked Michelle or somebody, I said, why is there so many people here? Because it came from me too. And I didn't realize the impact we were having on people. I realized that day how much you can impact people, how much that you can affect people in everyday life, and how much somebody else's life can affect you. So things went from bad to worse after that. And I laugh now. One thing you guys should know about me, even through all this, I always managed to find a smile. I always managed to make somebody else smile, because it made me feel better. Like I said, things went bad for worse. My relationship of 13 years split up completely when Kyle died. Kyle's dad and that guy actually didn't help me with anything. I was left with that bill all on my own, and if it wasn't for Ray and Michelle helping me, I wouldn't have gotten through it. I don't think. I don't know, because nobody else was stepping up to help me or stand beside me and hold my hand. Because that's all I really needed, was somebody to hold my hand and let me know I wasn't alone there. unity eliminates insecurity, right? So Gary and I broke up. You know what? I was kind of okay with that. We were together for 13 years. I had other things to worry about. But then I hooked up with this Mario guy, and we'll even skip past him because he don't matter.
Story of my life.
But at this point, I ask, how many of you would have just given up? And I mean, I wanted to. I wanted to give up on a lot of things, my careers, my family, who thought it was best for me to lay at home in bed and grieve and not go out and play music and not do the things that I wanted to do that made me feel better. You know, they just wanted me to lay down and die, and that wasn't going to happen. But at one point, and this is where the truth comes in, I don't think I've even told you before, right? But at one point I had enough in this time period. It was about, I don't know, a month or two after Kyle's funeral. And I came home one day and I just said, that's it, I'm done. I'm in. And I took, the doctor said I had about 780 milligram Oxycontins in my system when they pumped my stomach. I was asleep for 2 weeks. Weird. That happened to me when I was a kid too. But 2 weeks I was asleep, I think, anyway. And when I woke up, there was like a rabbi guy in the room and this minister. And I remember opening my eyes and thinking, is this just a bad joke? Like, what are they doing in my room and where the hell am I? Because when you wake up from something like that, you have no clue what you've done. There's no memory, there's no nothing. It takes a couple days for you to come around to that, to figure out what you've done. But I did, I tried to commit suicide. And the rabbi, he said, don't you get it, Carolyn? You don't get to be with your loved ones this way. You don't get to be your loved ones when you do it to yourself. You need to die a different way for that to happen. And that changed my mind, and I went through some major counseling after that. And again, how many of you would have just given up? I had no place in the world anymore. I don't talk to my family at that point, really. You know, actually I did. My mom, I'll get into that after, but I didn't really have a lot of family support. I didn't have my son, so the way I seen it was, what am I now? I was a mom a couple months ago, and for anybody that's a mom in the room, you know that that's the best gift a life can give, or a dad, it doesn't matter. So I had no place in the world, and I ended up buying this house, actually right after that happened, and because my mom and my stepdad needed somewhere to live. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna buy this house. You guys can live in the basement. We're all gonna be a happy family. You know what? You can't move back home with your parents. It just doesn't work. Like, I thought it was all gonna be happy. No, because your mom still thinks you're a little kid. I can't live with them. God love them, but I don't wanna live with them. Like, I'm just too independent. I've been on my own since I was 14. How do you go back to that? Right? You just don't. It just doesn't work. Then, you know, years goes by. I end up in another bad relationship that went massively abusive up until, to be honest, a week ago. A week ago today, that person was arrested. He's in jail now. But I got my butt kicked pretty bad. And I remember I made a text message to somebody, well, actually to Ray, that said, can you just make me disappear? I need to get the hell out of here. And he told me, you know, come see him, we'll have coffee, we'll figure it out. And we did. And I said, I just need to make a little bit of money. So I came here for the $400 a week. And actually it was $6 then. And I got benefits, so I was pretty happy about that. But that person was chasing me around. And I didn't want any of you or my team, I mean, some of you know what happened, but some of you don't know that this went on until last week. And up until last week, I've been staying in hotel rooms and stuff like that, and touring around with police and stuff like that. Combined, actually, at one point, had to hire security for me when I was in class. So what kind of company is that does that? Like, we are blessed. We are seriously blessed. Because I don't know any company that would have taken care of me the way this company did in the beginning, and still does now. So I'm blessed to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I got to start my life over, and God gave me a second chance. I am not a religious person, so for me to say that, it says a lot. But I smile at every given opportunity. I don't give up, and I'll kind of leave you with this. At my son's funeral, I said, everybody has a song. Everybody does. What song is yours? Maestro stands up, he holds his baton, and he's waiting for you just to choose your song. Choose it. Don't go until the music ends either. We have a rule, and actually I've been doing it with Sydney too, but we have a rule in my family that if this good song's on the radio when you're about to get out of the car, you don't. You wait for the song to finish. So don't go before your song ends. Figure out your song, play it, and then do it. That's it.